Let's talk about the magic of AMD, the magic of Lisa Su. I think everyone knows NVIDIA has really stolen the spotlight over the past few months, but AMD has made it clear that it's going to be a big player in this space as well.
Yes, and I mean, look, the results were no surprise. As we heard from Intel last week, that the PC market inventory digestion was almost finished, and Intel also beat on their client segment. And I think we're going to see the same thing happening with AMD, that now there's a high probability that PC market has turned the corner, and we are on a path towards recovery.
I am curious when we talk about the mix of revenue, kind of where it comes next, or at least where the big growth story is going to be. Are we talking about gaming? Are we talking about just general client revenue? Are we talking about data centers? Where?
Yeah, I mean, so if you look into second half, which is typically a seasonally strong period for PCs. So we expect that as the recovery starts coming gradually. Also, when we look at the data center, for the AMD specific, they are expecting to ramp two of their latest new products. And given the recent share gains, we expect sequential second half recovery to be strong in data center for AMD.
Well, Kunjan, in your preview, you wrote that data center growth, that you expected it to resume after a pause. We look at the data center revenue. It came in a little bit light, $1.32 billion. The estimate had been for $1.4 billion. Where do these numbers put AMD on that path back to growth for data centers specifically?
I think it's exactly where we expect it to be. I mean, the current overall data center environment is mixed. There is some inventory digestion, which is still expected to be persistent. But for the company specifically, the second half catalysts are going to be the Genoa product ramp and the recent share gains, which are expected to offset some of this overall market weakness, if you will.
And looking through the press release, the CEO coming out and saying that our AI engagements increased by more than 7 times in the quarter. Of course, it feels like the semiconductor industry is where we're seeing a lot of this AI euphoria play out. When you think about an AMD and the AI opportunity set there, how meaningful is that?
I mean, it is significant for them. I mean, look, currently when we look in AI, it's primarily dominated by NVIDIA GPUs, right? So there is customers are looking for a second alternative. Now, in the near term, the best positioned company to come in as a second alternative there is AMD. So for them, even if getting a small sliver of the pie could mean significant upside.
I am curious if you anticipate, and forgive me if this is kind of a bizarre question, if we start to see any sort of partnerships among some of these companies, because there's so much here for the taking, if you will, but we also know that this is an expensive proposition for a lot of them as well.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you see this typically in the semiconductor industry when customers start building second source or second supplier base with partnerships. So we do expect partnerships going forward for AMD when, you know, large customers want to bring in them as a supplier.
Is there any sense here that when we talk about business spending, so when we talk about the corporate clients that might be gravitating to the AI space, whether they're just trying to test it out or whether they actually do have some sort of meaningful business model for trying to feed that through to its own clients here. Is there any sense here that those potential clients actually have a path forward to actually generate revenue for this, or is this just now something internal that they'll just use for their own devices?
I mean, look, when you look at the largest drivers, customers who are driving this spend, they're the top 4 or 5 cloud service providers or hyperscalers, and that's where we expect, those are the ones we expect to drive the most revenue from this generative AI. So far it looks like the primary market will be captured by those.